And good evening. Happy Sunday, everyone. It's October already. I'm Jake Roberts. This is the Ghosts of Bacon podcast. And this evening, I have a really interesting show in store for you here. We have our guest tonight is none other than James Bear. And James is a member of the Ghosts of Bacon group. He's a researcher, an excellent researcher, as you're going to see. And what he has for us this evening is nothing less than not just a corroboration of the original location of the money pit as I've identified it through my work with the map in the 1611 King James Bible. But he came about corroborating it in a very unique way. And the other thing he has is some pretty groundbreaking information. I'm going to let him explain. And well, I'll just bring him in. Everyone, please welcome James Bear to the show. James, so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Oh, absolutely, Jake. It's wonderful to be here. I can't tell you how excited I am. And I can't tell you how excited I was to see your posting there a couple of weeks ago, actually a month or so ago, from Jeff Freeman about your discovery of the coordinates for 2 points within the King James version of the Bible.
Right.
It was fantastic. Just blew me away.
Thanks. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
So if you would you just introduce yourself to the Ghosts of Bacon crowd? I mean, you're a member of the group. You've put posts and people are familiar with some of the things you've been finding. But for people who are unfamiliar with you and how did you get involved in this in the first place, all the usual sort of questions we like to ask. How did you get sucked into the vortex of Oak Island research?
Oh gosh, well, vortex, that's a good word for it, isn't it?
It is.
Well, so my brother and I have kind of had an interest in this for some time, in Oak Island in general, and the mysteries and all the fun things that's associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what, Randy, why don't I put up or Howard goes by, is put up a website and you tell me what you know and I'll put that on there and I'll toss in what I know and I'll put on there. And I started looking at doing all this and I started looking at it. And then one night on one of the Oak Island TV shows, Stephen Guptill put a map up showing all the locations of everything on the island. And it's a GPS correct map, and it showed Nolan's Cross. And I said, hey, look at that. And I decided maybe I can do something with that. So I pulled it down, and it was all blacked out, and you couldn't see anything. So I just put it in photo processed it, turned everything that was black to white, and lo and behold, there's Nolan's Cross. It's GPS accurate to the island. And from there, I started drawing lines and trying to figure things out. And it's been a slow, long process to get even to where I originally had a solution worked out. And then this latest thing, based on what you did, I mean, that really just, pushed me to think, well, golly, maybe I can figure out the coordinates too. And here we are.
Oh, excellent. Let's talk about that a little bit in terms of, you and I talked about this pre-broadcast here a couple of hours earlier. And gang, I just really can't wait for James to show you what he has in store. He's already showed it to me. And there were multiple moments, James, where I was just blown away. I told you this in the process. And we kind of went back and forth and talked about some of the numbers that keep coming up, that kind of thing. We'll talk about that as a podcast progresses, but would you speak to the amount of time you've spent here on this?
Oh my gosh. All right. So the initial workup that I did to produce it's a geometric solution based on Nolan's Cross. That initial workup was developed over a period of probably 6 months, just kept looking and kept finding things. There's probably 200-300 hours in that. And once you see it, it's like, oh, there it is.
Right.
This latest business working out coordinates. Oh my gosh. I think, someone said, I'm getting a headache reading this stuff. And I went to bed with headaches trying to figure this out.
Sure. Yeah.
Easily another 150 hours or so after
Mhm.
you posted your coordinates, and I decided, oh, I got to figure out how this is done. Didn't know a thing about latitudes and longitudes and what all that meant and how that could be done. And you know what? Figured it out, and the result's amazing.
And that's just it. Here we are, just regular guys, right? You and I,
Yeah.
and we look at this information and say, somebody ought to be able to figure this out. And we bring the tools of just logic and mathematics, and you apply it to it, and suddenly things start to appear. But what it was funny, in the pre-show, one of the things you brought up, you started laughing. You said, well, I had no idea about coordinates or cartography or
Oh,
any of these things. And so, what was that like?
oh,
Learning about longitude, latitude, and all the rest.
oh my gosh. There's dealing with longitude and latitude. One of the things that I had to learn real quick is that everything's either east-west or north-south. North-south. It wasn't, the shortest distance between two lines. It's a whole different thing to consider, and then convert back and forth and figure out how to do that. And sometimes you subtract, and sometimes you add, and sometimes uh, there's all these variables. Even where you are in the world changes the longitude, the number of feet that's representative of 1 second of longitude, depending on what the latitude is in the world that you happen to be located.
Right.
All that has to be accounted for. Things you
Yeah.
just have to learn. It's not just straightforward, drop it in a bucket and it comes out. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And, depending upon where you are on the globe, it determines, are you going to the left or are you going to the right on a map? Right.
Yes.
And how far it really is. I've described it to people. It's quite the learning curve that, kind of just slopes upward very steeply as the further you go into it. And to consider the fact that it's all based upon three-dimensional geometry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and here they are, these Renaissance men, truly in the truest sense of the word and the phrase. It's astounding what they were capable of and what they were able to do. And I think I lost you. Oh, there you are. So basically, everyone, I'm working with a different laptop this evening. There you are. Okay.
Okay.
Not really sure what's happening there. I'm working with a different laptop that has different shortcuts, and so I'm trying to navigate everything here. What I was saying, James, is that this idea of what these guys were able to do is just so impressive. And then you come along, and I think that people are going to be very impressed with what you were able to do, frankly. So why don't we go ahead and get into it?
Okay.
Well, let me pull this up for you. And once this is up, you have full control here. I'm going to go ahead. I'll put us down here in the bottom for a moment. I think we'll be less obtrusive there. And I might move us around a little bit as you present, but James, please take us away and show everyone what you've been able to do here. This is just fascinating to me. I can't wait for everyone to see this.
So what everyone is looking at here on the screen, these are Jake's original 2 points based upon his decryption of the King James Bible map. And you can see he has at the top, it's the entrance, and at the bottom down there, that yellow pin is he calls the money pit. These are not the traditional places of the money pit. The money pit is normally searched for a little farther north, and he has it placed here right at the edge of the upper edge of the women's memorial. And the entrance is way up in a place that no one's ever even looked at. I don't think anybody's even so much as dropped a borehole down there. So these are unique spots. And this is something Jake discovered, and it set me just looking at this, because you see, if you look, there's an offset between the 2 points, and it's about 72 feet, according to Jake. Well, in my solution, the offset is also 72 feet. And that's like, well, a light bulb went off. Could it be possible that Jake's 2 points and my 2 points are really one and the same?
Could it be?
Could it be? Indeed, could it be? And I set out to try and show what the coordinates of my 2 points were. We're going to discuss that here coming up. So really exciting things. But you can see kind of where everything is. And in going through and doing the workup, I found that Jake's points needed a slight adjustment in their latitude. And I'll get into why of that here in a minute.
And this is one of my favorite thanks, John. This is one of my favorite points of your presentation this evening. You know, you didn't just take what I did and just take it at face value. You've been able to, in your work, you're refining these points in a very specific way, which I find to be fascinating. So just wanted to interject that. Keep going, James. This is great.
All right. So let's go to the next slide. And these are the original coordinates that Jake found. And this is, I believe, this is the money pit, I believe. And right. You can see here's the longitude and here's the latitude of it. And because the distances are so great, the only thing that's going to change longitude or latitude-wise on the island are going to be the seconds. That's it. The others are going to stay static. They're not going to move around at all. So that's there. Some of this I put up just for information. People can go back and look at this later. He put all this together, and going to show you something that's important here. This is there's a correction that has to be done for the Paris meridian that Jake found. And we don't use the Paris meridian anymore, but they did back in the days of Bacon. But now we use the Greenwich meridian. And so there's an adjustment that has to be made. And if you look up here at the longitude, you see it's 66 degrees, 37 minutes, and 33 seconds. Well, that's 33 seconds is going to be important in just a minute. We're going to show you because there's a double meaning or double usage of this particular point on the map and that I discovered. And this is one of the corrections. It's not in the longitude.
This is one of the things that I really enjoyed with what you showed me earlier, and you're about to show the rest of the group. But people who are members of the groups of the group that Ghosts of Bacon and followers of this show already know the significance of 33 and the seconds. So this is once again, you know, just keep going. This is great stuff.
Okay. So this is my solution, and if you look, you can see over here is Nolan's Cross, and here's your cone A, the face stone, cone D, cone E, and then there's a point down here called Tau. And Tau is 144 feet below cone E. It's halfway between the Amundsen stone and cone E. And the whole cross is laid out in a 144-foot common, divisor or layout. It's basically a Fibonacci sequence. If you start down the Amundsen stone at 0, then 144 feet to Tau, 144 feet to E, 288 feet to D, 432 feet to the face stone, 720 feet for the crossbar. At the top, you're at 1,152 feet. A Fibonacci sequence.
And so for regular viewers, you're probably familiar with the 144 number, which is the value of Rex Francis Bacon in simple cipher. So it's no mistake. And James, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. You know, that right there is just one piece of evidence of, you know, the idea that Bacon was behind the planning and construction of Nolan's Cross. This is something that my friend Chris Dona, before he passed away, had created an entire presentation and write-up about all of the Baconian numbers that are encoded within Nolan's Cross. And what you've done is you have, you know, without even knowing it, not just replicated his work, but you've extended it, expanded upon it, and actually, I think, in my opinion, solved it. So please, I just wanted to point that out for our regular viewers of how well all of this fits together, okay, and what you've been able to do. So please keep going. This is great stuff.
Well, thank you. So, I mean, a lot of people are going to look at this and go, well, now wait, cone D is not 432 feet from the face stone, it's 429 feet. Well, here's something to remember, and that is the cones are almost 6 feet in diameter. So the center is at 429, but the most distant edge of it is at 432. Now, it's really neither here nor there, because it winds up being that the 429 feet is actually the correct placement and most closely matches that of Jake's solutions, his coordinates. So 429 is the actual place. That stone was put there deliberately. It didn't move, wasn't shifted. It was placed there with intent.
Right. And we have our first question. Jim Barlow asked, what is tau tab? What's the significance? Jim, amazing question. Those of you, again, previous shows know that what I say the significance is, but I think within the context of this presentation, James is going to answer your question regarding how it fits in with his work. And I'll chime in when you do that, James, to try to make sure that we finalize the question for Jim. But I wanted to make sure I threw that out there. I happened to see it come up in the chat. So,
okay.
And one of our regular viewers and amazing researcher, Jason, artists following work of Da Vinci understand the Fibonacci ratios, and he mentions the name you and I talked about earlier today, which is Poussin. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. Truly.
Daniel, one of our regular viewers and good friend, is asking, do these calculations take into consideration that Fred moved some of the stones? And something else that, James, you and I talked about earlier today. So all good questions, and I think that by the time we're done, we're going to have some good answers. Thanks, gang. And again, James, I mean, like I said, we have really, well-informed group members. As you know, you're one of them, and asking some really great questions.
I can answer the one question real quick about, Fred's moving of stones. It really doesn't matter too much, because what it comes down to is everything's kind of figured off the coordinates of cone D. Right. So I'll show you that here in a minute. But
and D was the one that I had said in my own theory was the one that was not moved, or if it was moved, it was moved the least amount.
Yeah, it's
at all. Yeah,
if at all, it's where it needs to be. So, and I'll show you that that's mathematically provable, and I do have a full proof. It's about 18 pages of sawdust, boring reading, but it's all there, and I discuss everything. The distance differences between things are, and cones, and the Fibonacci sequence and interval. It's all in there. But here's the important thing. If we look at point D here, cone D, and move straight across in an east-west direction, it forms a right angle over here with a line coming up from the stone triangle. And by the way, this solution recreates a stone triangle. And its location and its purpose. So as you can see, as this line D comes across, it hits point Z, and point Z is Jake's entrance. And down below here is, I call it point K, and that's Jake's money pit. And the two, if you look, you can barely see it, but it says they're separated by 72 feet. And that's just geometry doing that.
Right.
Now,
and I found the same distance. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you look over here at tau, and this is how I actually found tau, is that I was looking for a line that somehow would intersect right up here at Z with Nolan's cross at a right angle. And it turns out that tau does that. It comes right in to this 7-degree offset line from that stone triangle and forms a right angle. So that's how I found tau in the initial thing. And then later I noticed, well, look, tau is just due east-west of point K. How about that?
Right.
So all this kind of lines up. The bottom line is I mean, a lot of people have put all kinds of lines and drawings and things on the island, and they'll wind up with maybe 2, sometimes 3 intersects on the island. Well,
Right.
mine have 5 intersects down here below for the point K, the money pit area, and then Z up here, the entrance area, has 4. So that takes it way out of the realm of just happenstance.
And in one of your, I know the question is probably already coming, but in a future slide coming up very soon, you're going to talk about the significance of how you named it Tav or Tau, this specific point, and it draws from the work of Peter Amundsen.
Yes, it does.
Excellent.
There's a midway point. There's this Nolan's Cross is also a Christian Kabbalah, and a Christianity, the Kabbalah is with a C, whereas in Hebrew it's with a K,
Okay.
and they have different meanings and such. But Tau is Tav or Tav in Hebrew, but we use Tau here, and that's an important aspect with baconian ciphers and things. Jake would know more about that.
Yeah. And like the significance of Tau for Bacon is, first of all, it's the 19th letter of the English alphabet, the T. The 19th prime number is the number 67, which is the value of the name Francis in simple cipher, one of his signature numbers. Furthermore, the Tav in Hebrew, it's the last letter of the alphabet, and it symbolizes truth, because in the Hebrew word for truth, Tav is the last letter. And Bacon was a proponent of the idea that you don't know the truth until you arrive at the very end of a plan or etc. So it's not until the end of things that you actually learn the truth. And so that's what the Tau or the Tav represents. C. Fulton with a question. Is that Tau the spot that we discussed with Jeff, where we were wondering what something was? Lot 2029, we said, that's about where it is. Yeah, C. Fulton. And it coincides with my point on the map that I placed, that I refer to as the Knee of Hercules. It's very close. So, in my opinion, that's a highly significant area of the island that as James has said, no one has searched for. As searched yet. So, and yep. Jeff just confirmed that. Hey, Jeff, I'm glad you could join us tonight, my friend. And he's saying yes, that was the same point. Now, and at the end, I'm going to be giving a quick shout out to all my friends' podcasts, you included, Jeff, because you guys are just, I learned so much just by watching you. I was trying to put up this comment because, like Jason with an amazing observation, it also makes another X cross, Tab to Z, D to Money Pit, St. Andrew's Cross, Scottish flag of King James and King Francis Bacon. Great observation, my friend.
Okay.
Wow. I totally missed that. That's great, Jason. As usual. Good job.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, James, go ahead and take it away.
Okay.
So I just have to, we have so many amazing people watching this evening, and with wonderful observations, great questions, and just keep them coming, gang. And James, let's have the hits keep on coming. This is I can't wait for people's reactions to what's about to come.
Okay, so Brian Farrow, I really got to thank him for all his work that he did. He wrote a book called The Secrets of Nolan's Cross, and he provided the coordinates for Cone D. And as I see here, this coordinate measurement was taken of Cone D and it measured 429 feet below the face stone. And of course, the face stone is found in the center of the 2 bars that make up Nolan's Cross. And here's his measured longitude and latitude.
Right.
So I'm going to be using these numbers to determine everything else about the coordinates for my points K and Z. And that's really important.
Yes, and I would say that that location is perfect. Actually, it's yeah.
From
all the information I have, it's the exact same location. Sure.
Perfect. Very good. So remember I said there had to be a little adjustment to one of Jake's, at least the latitude of uh, his one of his number, I forgot which one it is, but anyway, one of them is adjusted slightly. And you see it's 49.4518. And Jake had, instead of 49.5 or what
Yep.
have you seconds, he had 50 seconds.
Right.
And I found if you adjust it to 49.5 seconds, and it becomes a very good alignment, but also it shows in the map how to do that.
Right.
And we'll move on.
Yeah. Show everyone how exactly you did that. And you just kind of explained this. Keep going. This is wonderful.
Yeah. So what it comes down to is that if you do the corrections that I'm suggesting, Jake's entrance needs to be moved 50.64 feet south. That's minus half a second of latitude from where he had it pinned. And the money pit needs to move 33.42 feet plus 0.33 seconds latitude feet north of where Jake had it pinned. So about 33 feet above the Women's Memorial from where he originally had it pinned.
Right.
So that's correlates there very well with what I've got here by this.
Wow.
So here's one of the corrections. And if we look here, this upper line is one Jake drawn, but down here on this third cross was used. If you look on the bottom of it, you can see this very thin line. And I think it's what it's doing is it's hinting at where the line needs to be drawn to find the latitude. And it comes up using the bottom with a thin line. It comes up to 49.5 seconds, which correlates very well with a 49.4518 seconds of the measured in place position of cone D, which is also the latitude of point Z.
You know, I really like your solution, James, and here's why. I mean, I have to agree with your interpretation of the meaning of that line like that. I saw that and I used that as an indication of what to do with the crosses, which is what it is. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But what you did was you took that a step farther of what to do and where to draw that thinner line in order to come up with your number. And again, it's like, I find no flaw with that logic whatsoever. I think that's a brilliant solution.
Yeah, it aligns well with the actual physical position of cone D. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes things work that way. And it does seem to be correct. Yeah. So the next thing we had, here's a hangman. If you notice, and Jake found all this, and it points to 33. And why don't you say what about the hangman, Jake, about who this is?
Well, you know, what's funny is you brought this up while we were talking today, and I started laughing. I said, oh, my gosh, you know, John Edwards and I came to the same conclusion. And, John, you can speak to this here in the chat, but because you're here this evening. I hope your tailgate treated you well this evening at the football game. That's all I'm going to say. But, you know, you can corroborate this, that, you know, it represents the idea of Judas. Judas the hanging man, the one who betrayed Jesus. And then the word that you used today, James, was duplicitous, which when you think about the real meaning of that word, suddenly it could be an indication of how you interpreted it. Isn't that correct?
It is. In other words, it has a double meaning. You use the 33 to set the longitude for one of the points. And I found that if you use the 33, a double meaning for a correction in the seconds. So it'd be, I think it's 47.33 seconds or something like that. It corrects out the alignment of the 2 points and makes the coordinates match. So Jake does some things. I'll show you a slide here in a second. Well, actually, maybe we can go back real quick.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
If we look up here, here's the longitude. there's that 33 seconds that he found originally, but it had to be adjusted by the Paris meridian, and
Right.
it comes down to 19 seconds. But there's where that 33 originally came from. So let's go back to this, and then we're going to show you where things are and how this lines up. So I'm using it like Jake did, but instead of 33 seconds, it's 0.33 seconds. It's a decimal. So we keep Jake's 33 seconds and it subtracts out and it comes down to 19 seconds. But here's the positions and here's what gets calculated out. You know, Jake's latitude of the money pit was 44 degrees, 30 minutes, 47.33 seconds north.
Right.
And my latitude of the money pit, using the 429-foot location for Cone D, is 44 degrees, 30 minutes, 47.3189 seconds. And that works out to a distance of 1.12 feet. So I just saw a little something about, oh, something's off a couple feet here and there.
Right.
It's not much in the terms of latitude or longitude. You're thinking about hundredths of a degree or hundredths of a second. It's not much.
And yeah, and to be clear, James, what you did was, I mean, you're using Nolan's cross in order to identify these points on the map, and they're within. This one was 1 foot away.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Before you move on to the money pit longitude, I have to throw Jason's comment up here. He says he's looking at the 429 from the book just described. This estimate is 3 feet off of the baptism date of Shakespeare, 426, 1564, and 6 feet off of his death date, 423, 1616. These boulders are huge, and these numbers are still within 2 points. If you think that the coordinates, Jason, are actually at the center of the cone, and James, you talk about this in other parts of the presentation, and these boulders are 6 feet in diameter, well, you have 3 feet one way and 6 feet the other. And that basically, it's an amazing coincidence once again. Thanks for bringing that up, Jason. Good eyes.
Indeed. So the longitude, Jake gave a longitude of the money pit of 64 degrees, 17 minutes, 18 seconds west. And my calculated longitude of the money pit is 64 degrees, 17 minutes, 18.0485 seconds west. It's 3.5 feet.
Wow. I mean, you showed me this earlier, and I was just, I could have fallen out of my chair, but this is, again, every time you show it, it just amazes me. This is great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
John with a great observation as usual. Jake, that's part of a 369 configuration. 3 off 6 off and so on. Coincidence, John, you know the answer. I don't think we have any coincidences anymore.
No. So here's the entrance and the entrance latitude. So Jake's latitude of the entrance he gives is 44 degrees, 30 minutes, 49.5 seconds. And this is one we just showed corrected, of course.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, StreamYard kind of redid my formatting a little bit here, but
it happens. It's okay.
Yeah. The latitude of the entrance, my latitude of the entrance, and it says, again, using the 429 feet, is 44 degrees, 30 minutes, 49.4518 seconds north. And that's a difference of 4.88 feet.
Wow.
I mean, it's still hundredths of a second.
Right. Wow. Amazing.
It is. I mean, it's amazing they could work this out, haul these huge stones, which made massive thousands of pounds, and position them as accurately as they did.
I think that in order to do that, they would have to go through a whole lot of ox shoes. What do you think? What do you think, gang? Everybody watching? I mean, would that be the reason why we, keep finding ox shoes all over the island?
Maybe.
Could it be? Yeah. I think so.
So the entrance longitude here, correlation is that, Jake's had 64 degrees, 17 minutes, 19 seconds west. And as I mentioned, there's just 72 feet between the two longitudes of my point K and Z and Jake's entrance and money pit. And so it's just 1 foot farther west is the entrance than the money pit. And that 1 degree of longitude is 72 feet. And consequently, we just have to subtract one or add 1 second in this case. And it comes down to, I'm sorry, kind of get covered up there.
Oh, there you go.
Here it is. 64 degrees, 17 minutes, 19.0458 seconds west. And that's off again, 3.5 feet.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Really can't make this stuff up, but there's so many great comments there. Yeah, John, I'm pretty sure Carmen's going to, Gary will find them all and then take them to Carmen. And my sister agrees. Thanks, Penn. And Barbara makes the observation, well, they were Masons. Of course, they could move stones. But absolutely. Jason, of course, I already put up your observation that 64 plus 44 is 101 or 108, which is those of you who are unfamiliar with all of the cipher signatures, is the number or the value of the name Francis in reverse cipher. So there we go again, James. It just keeps, the hits just keep on coming.
Oh my gosh. All right. This is great. There's all these people that know about this.
Right.
Understand what these numbers really mean instead of just being something on the page that denotes location or something. Exactly. Much more than that.
There's so much more here. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that are important. I want to talk about how you figure out longitude and latitude and such.
Right.
So as you move further, or let's just put it this way, longitude varies with the latitude. And the further north you go, the narrower the longitude lines get to each other. And what that means is when you get up to Oak Island, 1 second of longitude is 72.47 feet. You have to correct for that when you're doing the mathematics of where you are and where you're trying to get to.
Right.
And then at the same latitude for Oak Island, and latitude doesn't move too much, but it does some with distance, but it's basically 101.27 feet is where it winds up. So when a person's working with longitude and latitude points, some general rules, and that is as a point moves further north in latitude, the latitude of that point increases. And as a point moves further south in latitude, the latitude of the point decreases.
Until you hit the equator, and then it goes the other way. Right.
Yeah. And as a point moves further west in longitude, the longitude of the point increases. And as a point moves further east in longitude, the longitude of the point decreases. And this is what I alluded to earlier when I said you got to be able to add and subtract and know what you're doing and understand why you're doing it. You get confused really easy. I did.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things where, okay, which direction am I going now? And which mathematical function do I perform? But at the same time, once you understand that concept, it's simple math. It's mathematics, and all you have to do is either add or subtract. And these numbers are not subjective in any way. There's no interpretation. It's just the numbers are what they are.
Exactly. And see, the tricky part is that Nolan's cross lies at a 30-degree angle to a due east-west line. So that means if you move, say, like on Nolan's cross from 432 feet to 429 feet, well, it's not that in latitude or longitude. It's different. In longitude, it's moving 3 feet. It's really 1.5 feet in longitude. And in latitude, it's about 2 feet. So it's very different because you're moving upwards and one's moving down and one's moving across. Very weird stuff. And it takes a while to get your head wrapped around that.
Correct. Yeah. And I think you explained part of that here on the next slide. Isn't that correct?
I think so. Let's see where we are. Here we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So here's some points, and I just put these on the line to help people grasp longitude, latitude stuff. So up here we have 2 points, point A and B. And A and B in this case have the same longitude, but their latitudes are different. In other words, one's farther north than the other. So point A has a higher or larger latitude than point B. Now over here we have point A1 and B1. Now A1 is identical in latitude with A, and B1 is identical in latitude with B. So these two latitudes, A and A1 and B and B1, are the same, but their longitude is different because they are separated. So they have different longitudes. Down below, we're going to talk about longitude. Here we have 2 points, A and B. They're on a due east-west line, so their longitude is the same. Okay. Or wait, they have the same latitude, but their longitudes are different. I'm sorry, my mistake.
That's okay.
Their longitudes are different. They're separated.
Right.
Here we have A and B1. Again, A1 and B1. And so A and A1 and B1 are basically the same positions, but in this case, the longitudes of these two are the same as they were over here, but the latitude has now shifted north and south. So they have different positionings and latitude. Just people can go back and look at that. All this took me a while to figure out, and I can make myself crazy with it. But,
but like you and I talked about, and maybe we'll bring this up here at the end about, how much time, and we already talked about how much time, this takes, this research and the learning curve. When I started doing this, you had told me you didn't know anything about, coordinates or mapping or any of these kinds of things. But once you take an interest in this, gang, there's a learning curve, and it's definitely a parabola that goes up steeply. The same thing happened with me with all of the cipher work, and then that led me to all of the map work, which led me to learn about all of the things you're presenting this evening. So it takes an incredible amount of effort and time to do what you've done, James. This is just very impressive information. And along with the coordinates, John Edwards makes this observation. He and I have talked about this in depth, obviously. Most of our visits are, but remember that locations in the Masonic world are both pragmatic and symbolic. The signature ciphers permeate so much of the geographic locations and structures for this reason. Symbolic in nature to their teachings. Absolutely, John. In fact, that was one of the answers to the question that I give for why, in terms of why did they choose Oak Island. It has to do specifically with the coordinates and the symbolic significance in baconian ciphers, as well as the directions and how to get there using the 1612 Champlain chart. So, I think that speaks to what John's getting at there 100%. Thanks, John. All right, good stuff, everyone. Barbara is asking or making this comment. Would that also explain the tilted arms of the cross on the drawings of Nolan's cross, other than pointing to coordinates? You mean in the map, Barbara, as in terms of the fact that they were angled and perhaps representing the idea of Nolan's cross? I wouldn't discount that at all. Again, what I found is that many of these clues have multiple purposes and multiple reasons. So great questions. Yeah, Curtis, it's always standard crazy baconian stuff. Daniel's asking a really wonderful question, as usual, my friend Dan Spino. James, how many years have you been researching this work? And you and I talked about this before the show. And the problem is that when it comes to years, with this stuff, it usually comes down to hundreds of hours as opposed to, multiple times. Go ahead. Let's jump into that, even though, you're in the meat of your presentation, and you just did a great explanation of how, longitude and latitude work for lay folk who might not necessarily understand mapping and map skills the way we do now after you and I, like I said, did that self-taught course of how to do it, right?
Yep.
There's a great explanation, but why don't you speak to that a little bit? How much time did it take you to really get into all of this
Oh, wow. Well,
that you spent on it? You have actually been researching Oak Island for quite some time.
well, not that long actually. Probably, I've been following the show since the start, but never really got into researching it until my brother
Sure.
mentioned something, and we started banning things back and forth. And I kind of jumped in at that point. It just really seemed interesting. So probably 2.5 years, something like that.
Okay.
But
That's plenty
hundreds
of
of
time.
hours each year.
Yeah, hundreds of hours each year. And I look at, I have the same story, I think I started a few years earlier than you perhaps, but what it boils right down to is I think is the amount of time spent each day. You take time out of your day. Time is a finite resource in a human lifetime. And so this is why, we talk about time much like we talk about money. You spend time or you waste time. And the problem is that when you invest so much attention into this stuff, suddenly, like I said earlier, I described it as a vortex, right, James?
Yes.
It just sucks you in.
Yep.
Next thing you know, you've been working on this stuff, and 4, 5, 6 hours have passed, and it's gone, right?
Right.
But that amount of time with focused attention is what it takes to really kind of deserve, or discern a lot of this stuff. And Daniel, your point is not wasted at all. Well done. Yeah, it is obvious you have spent a lot of time on it, and he respects that very much. Great comment, Daniel. Yeah, I think we all do this, and I think that by the time you're done, everyone's going to respect it more because there's so much more to go. Keep going, James. This is wonderful stuff. I told you this was going to be fun with everyone asking questions.
Listen, somebody asked a very important question. He said, well, look, due north has shifted over the years and such. This is a geometric solution. So it doesn't, where true north is, really doesn't matter too much because it's based upon the actual physical location of the cones that make up Nolan's Cross.
And I would like to point out, that Go ahead. I'm sorry, James. I talked over
the
you.
alignment and how that works. So
you're talking about geometry.
Really much difference.
Your geometry of the objects on the island don't change regardless of where magnetic north is. It's not true north. It's magnetic north. Now, magnetic north does travel. True north is true north when it comes to where all of the longitudinal lines meet. So great comment. Thanks, James. Keep going. Take it away.
So here we go. This again, this is a Fibonacci sequence of Nolan's Cross with a 144-foot interval that I corrected out. And this is a good place to look at things and see how it kind of lines up in an ideal world. But you know what? It's not really built this way. It's actually built like this, where it's 429, 293 between the face stone down to E. Now, what I did was I looked at this and I thought about tau. Well, where does tau fit in all this? Because these are different than my numbers. So we know that the Amundsen zone found by Peter Amundsen is 1,152 feet from cone A. That's where he found it. And so that gives a whole distinction of, if we take whatever you want here from here, 429, 293, and then add the difference, which would be 285 feet to get between cone A down to the Amundsen stone. You wind up with I don't know, I forgot what it is, 865 feet or something like that.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you divide that by 2, you get 432 feet from cone D down to tau. Because tau is 864 feet roughly from
A.
From the face stone.
Right.
Yeah. from the face stone.
Oh,
You
okay.
got A to E is 864, but face stone to tau is also 864.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay. So I looked at that, and it's a half foot. It's inconsequential essentially. It's hundredths of a second.
6 inches.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is the part that I'm not gonna steal your thunder. This
Okay.
gang. This is the one that blew me away.
All right. What I realized is,
James, this discovery I think is going to just make you famous in Oak Island.
Well, okay.
History.
I had, in doing my workup and such, I had to recreate the location and the dimensions and an understanding of the stone triangle and what it's really used for. And we have a line AB and a line AC. The line AB is a line that goes straight up north and intersects the money pit. And the line AC veers off at a 7-degree angle somewhere into the west side of the island. And I started looking at the, this is part of my logic I came up with, and I started looking at this going, I wonder with this 144-foot interval, if somewhere the interval between, the angle that's formed as it exits the apex here of the triangle is 144 feet. And I started looking at that going, well, that puts it way out in the middle of the ocean. That's not going to work. But how about 72 feet? And that's where all of a sudden point K, or is it Z, farther up, kind of located itself. And
right. Can I quickly interject, James? Some people, if you're not familiar with the triangle feature on the island, what James is describing is what is known as the Welling's Triangle. And it's a 10 by 10 by 10 equilateral triangle with a set of curved stones down at the bottom that also ran to make it look like a sextant, actually. And so one of the things that has happened is over the years, searchers have basically destroyed it by digging in the spot, thinking it was, something significant would be under it, as opposed to figuring out how to interpret why it was there and what it meant. So it was destroyed, and subsequently the exact location was, the exact location was lost, even though people have a very close idea of where it is. And what James has been able to do is identify its exact location, which is what he's describing now. And listen, gang, not only is he going to be explaining its exact location, but I believe he's going to be finally demonstrating its purpose. And real quick, John Edwards, 72 being 1/2 of 144, correct. And Jason, John, you guys know the significance of the number 72 as being the interior angle of the pentagram, but it's also a baconian cipher signature of his true identity, as I believe F⁻³ and simple. But if also you all recognize that 144 is Rex Francis Bacon, so I just want to repeat that in simple cipher. James, take it away.
Okay.
Show us what this thing does. This is
I don't want to lose anybody here, but this is basically the way it looks. Now, one of the things that I found is that where the distance is, where these two lines separate by 72 feet on the interior of the island between the line AB and the line AC, where they're separated, I did some math, and I'll show you that in a second, but it works out to 586.4 feet from the bottom of the triangle. That's just simple trigonometry, nothing fancy there. And what that means is, if you look at this 10 foot here and 10 foot here and 10 foot here, a sextant, this center arm is also 10 foot. So we know that, there's a line of stones down here, and this is 586.4 feet. And if you figure 0.4 foot is about 4.8 inches, rather, about the thickness of a stone. So what that comes down to is, if you take 10 feet, 4 inches out of this, you wind up with the distance from point A all the way up to where point Z is.
And for those of you viewing, James has identified, if you remember, that map he used at the very beginning of the island had point Z located near our location. What wasn't it, the entrance, James?
That's the entrance. Yes.
Okay, so just to make that clear for everyone, keep going. This is, and then when you show it on the map, everyone's going to understand.
I'm going to show this on the map now because this is getting confusing, but let me move forward here.
Okay.
So I want to just show everybody where Point Tau, it's also the Jewish Tav, is on the Kabbalah. It's in between these large sephirotes, and it's not often seen, but there it is, and they're one half the way between them. So it does exist, and it's in the standard nomenclature. So here's how this works. So what I've done here is I've taken, this is point K here, and I started drawing some lines to show how all this intersects. And when I first laid this out, I started running some arc lines, and I would use different arc lines from either like A or B or C, and trying to find something that lined up with a 144-foot dimension. And what I found was an 864 arc line kind of drops through here, which goes kind of right through the money pit area if you look at it. And I thought, well, you know, there's a good place. So what happened? So I drew like a line CB, CA, and down this way. And then I drew, you know, this line DB across here. And what makes this work is Steve Guptill's really accurate map. Otherwise, these things don't align. People have tried doing this for years, and they wind up with points way all over the island because the maps were inaccurate. And then I noticed that point Tau comes right across at the same level as point K. So knowing that all of these intersect in one place, we got 3 lines that intersect here, well, 4 lines actually, that intersect here, we know historically that the stone triangle is due north of the money pit. And if you draw a line straight due north, it goes right through the center of it. And that sets the east-west location on the island of the stone triangle. So now that part of the stone triangle has been located.
Okay, so to reiterate, the stone triangle is actually due south of the money pit. And as you as you located it, and you're going to indicate how you were able to locate that. This is one of my favorite parts. But I want to point out to the viewers live and the people who are going to be watching this later on YouTube and on Facebook. What James has here is a screenshot, a capture of an episode of The Curse of Oak Island where Steve Guptill actually posted or displayed his map of the island, and on it are the exact locations of the cones of Nolan's Cross. Now, a lot of the information that's out on the internet about the coordinates of Nolan's Cross are incorrect. I can personally attest to the fact that, James, the locations that you are using here have been confirmed by Steve and the team on Oak Island 100%. So good stuff. Keep going.
Wonderful. So let's move forward. So now we've got the northern, this due north line, which locates the stone triangle on the east-west position of the island. Let's go further. Let's look at something here that has to do with, again, here's a whole bunch more trigonometry stuff, but it shows how things work. If we look here from cone D, there's a due east-west longitude line that goes directly over to the entrance. And down below, there's an east-west longitude line that moves directly over to the money pit. And as you see, there's a drop down here and a drop down here. Well, we know that these 2 lines here between D and the longitude line originating from Tau, it's going to be the latitude difference between the entrance and the money pit. Remember those lines I showed you where things might be offset, but if the dots are correct, even though they're offset, it doesn't matter because the latitudes are still the same. So here we know that this is here, that this line intersects point Z and this intersects point K. And so the latitude between them is this. And this is basically 30-degree angle and 432 feet, and that gives 216 feet.
Wow.
So,
And Jason just commented 60, 60, 60. FB is 60 in Bacon's K cipher. Because F, it has a value of 32 in K cipher, and B has a value of 28. That equals 60. Yeah, good eye, Jason. That was a nice catch.
Yeah.
Very well done. And John is also pointing out that, James, your work reminds John of Jason Mercer and William Russell's work. You're using the same methodology, and good observation, John, because you have to remember that all of us use mathematics and simple logic, and there it is. So great stuff, James. Keep going. This is such and a couple of people had commented about math, and when we start talking about math, they kind of glaze over and their brain shuts down. But this is about as straightforward as you get when you look at what you've done here with the image you've created. What you have there is a really great visual, just demonstrating very simply how it works, of how the parallels coming from cones, in this case it's C and D, it looks like, or is it D and E, going straight across, demonstrate the latitude. So keep going. This is just, again, people are going to be blown away when they get to the end of this. So
okay, so D and tau. So it's 216 feet. Well, 216 feet, let's convert that to seconds of latitude. So we divide that by 101.27, which is 101.27 feet per second, and we get 2.1329 seconds. So we know that from the measurement that was taken of cone D, that it's at 49.4518 seconds. And so we'll subtract the 2.1329 and we get 47.3189 seconds. And remember, it was at 47, Jake's solution was 47.33. So there you go. That's how that's arrived at.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, it's all in my explanation, and you can bore yourself silly with it, but it's there. And if you want to look at it and dissect it, but it's discussed there. So let's look at the next slide, because this is going to show you, this gets into longitude. The longitude
this puts it all together for people.
There to figure out. So we've got the latitude of D, and we have the latitude right now of point C, and we have the latitude also of the point K, the money pit. So we have the latitudes of both solved. So let's go on. Let's look at this solution again for a second. So here we have Z and K. And what we want to do, if you look at this closely, here's cone D. And if you look all the way across, it intersects here with the north-south line coming off the money pit. I think there's a nice right angle here. So I thought, well, gosh, how can we figure out what this distance is to here? Because if we know what the distance is from D to this north-south line from the money pit, then we can figure out what point Z's longitude is, because this is going to be the longitude from point D to the north-south line of point K, just like that drawing I showed earlier. The two things may be separated, but it doesn't matter. Their longitudes just shift, is all that's shifting here.
Right.
So I tried to figure out, how do we do that? I need to know where the bottom is exactly here of the stone triangle. And what I found was, because there's a 140-foot interval, the way that the Nolan's Cross was created, I just measured down to where it looked like 144 feet was. I use a really accurate ruler. It's used for circuit board layouts, and they're actually printed like a circuit board with really accurate digits on them. So they're easy to place and make things right. And I placed it there and I drew it down, and lo and behold, right through, connected with cone B over here, it goes right down and sets the bottom point of the triangle,
Wow.
of the old stone triangle. So now we know where that is located without actually having to get out and measure and stand there and go, well, where is this? And mind you, this is a big sinkhole these days over here. You just can't stand in that.
Right.
So we know where this is now.
Mm-hmm.
So from this, we can now discern how to find out what this longitude is for both points. And that's done in this manner. So here we have this line D all the way across to the north-south line. Here's the line that we just drew 144 feet down, all the way down to the bottom of the stone triangle. And then I drew another line from point D all the way down. So we've got a nice right angle triangle, and we have this distance that we can figure, but all we have to know is what this angle is here, and that's 26 degrees. So I measured that, and to show you what you got, when you measure it, here's 26 degrees. So once we've got this, we can now determine what this particular line length is. So one of the things that's shown in my proof is I went back and I took Jake's longitude placement for point K, the entrance, the money pit. And I took that longitude and I subtracted it from the known longitude of D, and it came out to like 1,205 feet. So I knew I had to have right around 1,205 feet for my calculations to be correct. And what happens is when you calculate this out, this distance from D all the way over here to this north-south line calculates out to 1,202 feet, point something or another. So it was right there. And that's why there's only a small difference of about 3.5 feet between the longitude down here of K, my longitude of point K, and Jake's money pit. And then we know it's just 72 feet across over here up at Z. Right. So take that 1 second off and you wind up with this identical. Again, it's 3.5 feet off. So that's like 18 seconds, and that's 19 seconds. So those correlate perfectly.
Yes, they do. And every time and I posted, or I put up John Edwards' comment where he said he recognized, and like you and I had talked about before in pre-show, he also understood exactly what you did. How you worked backwards in order to identify the exact location of Welling Triangle, and his word was that's brilliant, and I agree. That's just brilliant work. Back engineering that. Couple of questions. Barbara Duncan is asking, does this also indicate the tunnel elevation as well, not to mention the flood tunnel locations? Not in my work, Barbara. Again, it's like, I think that, there would be an indicator just below the surface of the entrance, as well as, the offset chamber, if you will. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, James? Anything to indicate elevation or?
No.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that either.
Yeah, this is all just two-dimensional, I'm afraid. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but still, great question, Barbara. It's really interesting to think about if we'd be able to find any information on that. And Jenny, as usual, asking great questions. Wonder if Fred had this on his maps. For my work, I think that, we can only speculate about Fred's maps. I've never seen them myself, but I would be very interested to see what was on those maps for sure. I do know that he had locations of rocks that had encryption or inscriptions on them, which I believe were encrypted, and what they had on them, but whether or not we know what was on them, I'm not sure. Just going to... So many comments popping up here. Can't really keep up with them. Yeah, Barbara, what we all agree, and James, Blankenship was right. It was done by the most brilliant SOB on the planet. Isn't
Ever, I think.
I mean, wasn't that our conversation earlier
Yeah,
this afternoon? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Barbara, thanks for throwing that up there in the comments in the chat. So, James, go ahead and take us here through the end game here, because this is the part that I simply love. I love this part of this. So go ahead.
Sure. But by the way, Jason Mercer asked a question about did I say 1205? And I did say 1205. That was a calculation based upon Jake's positioning and coordinates. So yes, that is correct.
And what I think what Jason is referencing is, I believe that was the date of Mary Queen of Scots' birthday, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, in the chat, but I think that's what you're referencing. James, go ahead. This is
okay.
I can't wait for what's to come.
Okay, so here's something I gave a good bit of thought to about why is there a cross? Why did Bacon use a cross? And what I found was Proverbs 3:13-18, and it discusses, and it's talking about in this the never named, but the name given to this entity is Sophia. It's the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. And it's
we know her through Baconian research as Pallas Athena.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know you were going to get there, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it talks about this, and it goes, and I'll just real quick that right down here at the bottom to quote. This is about Sophia, the tree. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. And can it ever be more clear about what Bacon made there? He made a tree of life on the island. And he talks about these are Baconian tenets. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, the man who gets understanding. For her good profit is better than getting silver, and her return is better than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies. None of the things you can desire are to be compared to her. And length of days is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. It's like this is Baconian philosophy in a nutshell in many ways, I think.
100%. 100%.
And it to me, it's like why he put this here, put that cross in there. But the genius of it is what he did with just, a handful of large boulders.
It's amazing. And he just placed their simple placement, and it wasn't simple. But, you and I talked about this earlier today, and I keep referencing our conversation, but so many really neat things came out of it. And one of them was what you just said. Which is this. Here you have him, strategically placing these things. And then you have, just regular guys like you and me looking at it and saying, well, you know what? There has to be a logic to it. There has to be a pattern. There has to be a plan. And so what Bacon was all about was looking at nature and phenomena and discerning the plan behind it in order to understand the mind of the creator, God. That's how he studied nature. And he believed that by studying nature and being a true scientist, that he would come to be able to understand the idea of the plan and therefore the planner, right? And this is exactly what you just outlined right here. And this is exactly what we've done with what he left behind, I think, right? We're using his same exact methodology to discern his plan. And I think that by you identifying, and in that previous slide, I want to really stress the import of what you've done upon people watching this evening and people who watch this later on YouTube and Facebook. You have not only located the original location of Welling's triangle, the stone triangle, but you also have basically explained its purpose. People have been trying to figure that out for 200 years, but I think that you have explained that. And guys, I know Jason, you're watching. William will watch this later. Anybody else out there who wants to dive into the pool of baconian research, I think that the page of the King James Bible, 1611 version, that has Proverbs 3:13 through 18 on it, deserves a really close look. And I attribute that to you, James, that you have identified. Basically, this is an allusion, a reference to that passage in the Bible, and I think that it's pointing us to that page, and maybe we'll have more to learn about Oak Island on that page. I'm speculating. Yes, I don't like to do that, but I have to at this point, based upon your work. This is brilliant stuff.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right, Jake. And who knows what he's encoded or put in that page in relation to this passage. I think somebody's gonna find something.
Yeah,
is my opinion. I think
yeah,
that's absolutely right.
And whether or not we ever hear what was found or whatever, it's television, gang. So you have to take it for what it's worth. And there's Barbara. Yeah, she's giving you the comment. Well-connected piece of work. This is just so well done. Absolutely, Barbara. It's just well done. Penn, thank you for commenting. The money pit amounts to the thing called life, wisdom. Money can't buy you life. I think this was their thinking. ? I agree, Penn. That's really well said. John, Axis Mundi. Who knows? Court's work is just beyond compare. It's brilliant stuff.
So anyhow, I mean, it's pretty amazing. Let's go a little bit further here. So
yeah, please.
So here's something, and most authors, designers, and artists, they sign their work. And Bacon was a Rosicrucian, and one of the Rosicrucian's primary tenets is that everything in the universe has an invisible mark.
Yep.
It is a signature of identity. And this invisible signature, its mark, reveals the object's true self. So if we take and add just one line coming up on the east side of the island from the stone triangle, one gets this.
Tell everyone what they're seeing here, James.
You're looking at a big spear. In other words, an allegorical, symbolic signature of Francis Bacon.
A spear you can shake, in your words.
Pardon?
When you showed me this first time. Yeah.
Exactly.
And gang, this is the point where I wanted to bring up in order for you to do this, James, you discovered an angle of 26 degrees. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you look at this vertical line formed by the Welling Triangle that points due north. And so that would be 180 degrees. So in relation to this, and if you subtract that, you have an answer of 154. And any Baconian cipher people out there, that 154 is a significant number as representing Shakespeare. And here you have the spear drawn on the island. Pretty cool. Just not gonna lie, James. That's just really cool.
Well, he was, very subtle, but it's all there and it all works mathematically. But I've had this, and it's like, well, this is really interesting, but somebody needs to get over there on the island and walk this off, or measure it out, or work it out. And then you posted your work with the coordinates. It's like, well, holy cow, maybe I can figure this out somehow.
Oh, absolutely.
And it just hadn't occurred to me.
I'm so glad you did. Obviously, for a variety of reasons. Not only does it corroborate my own research, but what you're doing is, I'm sorry, Pierce Mercy, yeah, and John, yes, not kidding. What you've done is not just corroborated what I did, but you've solved a couple of, in my opinion, I think that you solved the purpose of the Welling Triangle, first of all.
Yeah.
And as well as one of the functions of Nolan's cross, like everything else that Bacon did, it served multiple functions, and I think that you just were able to outlay for everyone one of those significant purposes that it was meant to do, and it's just great work, just really great work. Looking at Barbara, again, with another great comment. This is so true. Amazing that Oak Island is becoming Bacon's best lesson. The pursuit of treasure is knowledge. Who knows what a final physical goal is? And you tend to agree with Rick. It's both material and temporal. You know what? Yeah, I think that from what I've read, as long as no one else has already gone there. Listen, gang, it's been 400 years, and Bacon and his fraternity left behind all the clues that people needed in order to figure out exactly where stuff was. Okay, I'm not the first person to decrypt that plaque. First of all, I'm not the first person, I think, to decrypt the map in the 1611 King James Bible. And James, we have to, like I said, you and I are regular guys. We spend a lot of time, a lot, our family and wives and girlfriends will definitely attest to how much time we've spent working on this. But at the end of the day, we can't possibly be the only people who have ever figured this out. So the people who figured it out before us, did they go there? Did they recover anything? Did they just leave it be? Did they, we don't know the answers to any of these questions, but I really can't be so, self-important as to believe that I'm the first person to ever figure this out. You know what I mean? And I just from talking with you, the few times that we've chatted, and then today, you're not that kind of guy either. And so is it still there? I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know, but I know that it was there. I know we were right, and we can only hope that at the end of the day, I know that I think that this next season of Oak Island is going to, reveal a lot of things. I don't know for sure, but I think it is. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, James?
Well, my thoughts are, number one, I'm really thankful that the 2 points are in a place that's never really been just completely turned upside down, disrupted, and had dynamite thrown into it over the past 225 years. They're basically untouched up there. No one, I don't even know if anybody's so much as sunk a drill shaft or borehole.
Right.
But you're right, Jake. Has in the past someone gone in and looked at that? Well, there's probabilities, especially if there was something value there at one time. And
for sure,
somebody at some point got in dire space and go, well, I made a secret and I swore an oath, but I need the money.
It's there. Yeah.
So who knows? Yeah,
I agree. And here's the thing, we've been waiting, for a full season of the show, The Curse of Oak Island, for them to go ahead and employ the Muon technology and get the results, and it takes a year, right? So I think that this season they were acting upon that technology. I think that they're looking at a place that validates your location and my location, and probably your refinements of my original location. I think that we're on, like I told you earlier today, we're on the right track. I think 100%. And in the process of doing that, as you mentioned, and I don't know if you want to speak to this or talk about it, but, with this kind of research and doing it the way we're doing it, and John Edwards brought this up in one of his comments, I started out doing this and I wrote my book, and then, Jason Mercer picked up the mantle and it just started running with it. William Russell watched one of my podcasts and he said, well, this guy sounds crazy, but he certainly seems to believe it. And he just said, check it out for yourself. So I guess I will. And he did, and basically realized I was correct once he checked it out for himself. And, you're doing your own independent research using your own means and methods. And we're all coming up with the same information. And so at the end of the day, when we do that, there are a lot of other researchers out there and theorists who propose theories and put stuff out there. And what we're finding kind of contradicts everything that they're saying. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. One is, are we really contradicting anything they're saying to a certain degree? Maybe what we've done is we've just found something unique that hasn't been found before and doesn't have a relationship to anything that people have been looking at in the past. And in other words, like everybody's focused on the money pit or Templars or take your pick. And
Sure.
those are all interesting diversions, you might say, because in some respects, if you can say one thing, so far, it's in spite of Herculean efforts, there's not much to show for it. I just hate to say that, but it's true.
It's true. Well, I mean, Rick says it himself. He said, a theory is just a theory until you hold something in your hand.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we have something different. And why not? Because that's what it sometimes takes. It's like, if what you're doing isn't working, it's time to look for something else that just might, and not as a extension of what's been done in the past,
Yes, exactly. I mean, you said that so well, and you're so good that you said it in a way that, if I had tried to answer that question on a podcast, I probably would have offended a whole group of people. But you just summed that up so nicely. I really appreciate you very much. All right, so let's wrap this up a little bit, gang. Just looking at the comments, looking for any questions. And John, again, you say this over and over again, but didn't I tell you earlier today, James, that John keeps saying that. First of all, he says you can't make this stuff up, but he doesn't ever say stuff. But it does. It's going to take all of us to, because that was something that you and I were marveling about today, James, about. Here, Bacon was one man, and he surrounded himself with other brilliant people, right? But at the end of the day, this plan it seems to be his, and it's been taking guys like you, me, Jason, William, John, a whole host of other and people, like, for heaven's sakes, Peter Amundsen, and we have baconian experts around the world looking at it, and at the end of the day, it's all of this group of people, and Jason just summed it up right here. The village is getting smarter. I hope so, Jason. I hope so. I don't want to bring down the collective IQ of our village, but at the end of the day, I think that what we have here are people who take an interest in this, are intelligent people who are placing their attention on it and bringing their brain power to it and really focusing and figuring things out. And I think that all of us together, it's going to take a whole group of us to figure out what this one man had done and planned. And so I want to thank you for your contribution. This is, and honestly, in the middle of the show, one of the comments, I think it was John. Yeah, I think you're the one who made it. Was that this is war room quality material, and I agree 100%. And I think that we're probably going to see you on the next season of The Curse of Oak Island, unless they found everything this year, which I'm pretty sure the show is going to continue. I'm pretty sure the show is going to continue. Oh. But James, give a quick shout out to you have a website with your brother. Give us the website address. We can send some traffic there, and people can check out your information. When you first mentioned what you were doing to me. The first thing I did was you sent me your website, and I looked at it, and it's, gang, if you get a chance, you got to go to James' website. It's brilliant information, and you can actually see the evolution of what you've done in your research and your ideas just by going there. And I think that you're doing some really great work, man.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it all
So
kind of revealed itself as I went along, but
that's what it does.
my website is www.navigatingoakisland.com. That's my brother and my website. We have our stuff on there, and most of it, all the math and all that's kind of my stuff. But huge contribution to stimulating me to move forward and do things. So
sure. Well, listen, next time bring him with you. We'll, I'll have you both on, and we'll just shoot the breeze about Oak Island and have a good time, I'm sure.
Sounds fun.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop you out and just hang out here for a second here after I close up the show, and we'll touch base and make plans for the future. Okay.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, James. James, thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks, buddy. Wow. Can you guys believe that? Not only does he bring, original research that corroborates, my own work, but in addition to that, identifies a new purpose of Nolan's Cross, identifies the location of the Welling Triangle, and then solves the puzzle. In my opinion, I think he solved this, the purpose of the Welling Triangle. Wow. That's just, I don't know, mind-blowing to me. I'm going to go ahead and, yeah. You know what, Jeff? Yeah, wow. I agree. So, and Jeff, I think that, he's a guy that, will probably align really well with your show very, very soon. And what I wanted to do before I wrap things up is I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Jeff Freeman. Guys, Oak Island and beyond, you gotta every episode, Jeff, you do is killer. You're an amazing interviewer. You do this. I learned so much just by watching you do what you do. So I want to say thanks. And also we have a new podcast, History Hunters. Court Lindahl, John Edwards. If you haven't checked out their first two episodes, unfortunately I couldn't watch them live. Friday evenings. What is it, John? 7:00, or is it 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? We're going by Court's California time. So, guys, check it out. History Hunters. Join the Facebook group. It's great. It's growing. Excuse me. Check it out. You're going to have guests. First of all, you have Court and John. Okay, quintessential researchers hosting this show. It can only be awesome, right? And on top of that, you're going to have them, pulling in researchers, independent, such as myself, but other people that are, Gretchen and other people who are just kind of revealing. This is what we do. We're just trying to uncover real history, what really happened, as opposed to what people just kind of vote on and accept in terms of what will end up in a history book, right? So this is a huge contribution, I think, to all historians everywhere. And if you have any kind of interest in history and alternative views in terms of what may have really happened, as opposed to the story that was written by the victors, you're going to want to tune into that every week. So once again, my usual viewers, I saw so many familiar names this evening. And I want to say thank you. Okay. You guys make this possible. Went long this evening, but it was such a great show, great information. James' work is phenomenal. And I'm so glad that, he joined our group, Ghosts of Bacon, and, was able to share his information with us. So listen, gang, thank you so much. I think I missed a few of the questions. Awoken one, I forgot to bring up your question to him, and we'll get to that in our in our Facebook group. Okay, so definitely want to, because it was such a great question. I'm sorry that I forgot to bring it back up here at the end, but gone a little long. I want to wrap things up. And listen, people, you guys are really great. Appreciate you. And until next time, 2 weeks from now, be good to each other and take care. Thanks again. Appreciate you.